Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. I am delighted to be joined today by Gabriel Constans. We will be discussing mindful meditation for health and well-being. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well,
I always love talking to a person that has a lot of books behind them.
And I've read them, which some people don't believe, but I actually have.
I believe it, yeah.
Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers. And since you mentioned books, don't forget to talk about yours as well.
I'll be glad to. I've been working for quite some time, about 50 years now, in different modalities of teaching meditation and mental health in a variety of contexts, in hospitals, counseling centers, trauma treatment centers, recovery centers, clinics, on the street at a program I was working with in the US and overseas. And one thing that has really stayed with me and helped serve me to be a better support to other people has always been meditation, and mindfulness meditation specifically. So book-wise, I've had a number of books out over the years, and a couple of films I've written have been produced and distributed. And the last book is called A Brave Year, which is most relevant to what we're talking about today. It's called A Brave Year, 52 Weeks Being Mindful. And I think that doesn't talk about all my family or things I like to do, but we only have so much time, so yeah.
Oh, that's fine, I thank you. Now, what is mindfulness?
Mindfulness is just with intention, being aware of what is taking place in the moment, internally and externally. So being aware of your senses, being aware of your emotions, being aware of thoughts, being aware of what your experience is in any given moment. And probably the most difficult thing about learning being mindful is remembering to do it. So.
Now, today, I'm in metropolitan New York. I'm in New Jersey. I will not go into New York City, period. I've been invited to speak. I said, absolutely not. I will not go into New York City because, and then when I declined the invitation, I got the notice that you wanted to be on the program. And I was thinking that how can you be mindful when you enter a subway, you mind your own business, you stay away as much as possible from people, and you wind up, as happened a few days ago, getting shot in the head. You can't control what other people are going to do, and you can't always read them properly because they're sick. So how does mindfulness help you in that extreme case?
Those things are all true, and you can control things, and many things are beyond our control. We can make choices and be as safe as possible. Mindfulness, it's not really trying to when you're trying to pay attention to what's going on, you aren't trying to get rid of anything. You aren't trying to be peaceful or going off to some beautiful place. When you're mindful, you just become more aware, not only of externally what's taking place in your surroundings, such as the subway, but also internally what your reactions are to your environment, your bodily sensations, your emotions, your thoughts. So in many ways, it helps you to become safer because you're paying more attention to how you react and what you say or do or don't say or do when you're in any given situation. The wonderful thing about being mindful is that Viktor Frankl said it really well. He was a famous psychologist who survived the Holocaust during World War II. And then he became a psychologist later and came to the States. And he didn't call it mindfulness, but he said everything has an action and reaction. And in between that action and reaction is a space. And it's in that space where we find our freedom and our power. And that was one of the best descriptions of mindfulness that I think I've heard. So I think it can help because whatever is going on is what you're paying attention to as being mindful. You aren't trying to avoid it. There's this loud sound. You pay attention to your sound. I can do a really short 3 or 4 minute exercise if you'd like me to from the which we use often from the book, which can help quite a bit in those kinds of situations. So there's no way to prevent whatever happens happening. And luckily, even though they're more common in this country than most countries, being shot and killed is very, very rare and a very, very small minority of situations or events that happen to the majority of people.
That is quite true. You are correct. Now,
it's like somebody can say a lot of really positive things, 100 positive things to you, and the one thing they say that's critical is all you think about.
Of course.
So it's like that a lot with also with environments and when we get fearful of doing things or going places, etc. So.
Well, it comes down to when you don't have control, and for all intents and purposes, there's no one there to protect you. You have to make the decision: is the danger or is the benefit worth the danger?
Yeah, it's like taking precautions for COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you not go anywhere ever for the rest of our lives, or do we do everything that we can to get vaccinated, wear masks, you continue using social distancing, choosing where we want to be, if it's indoors with a lot of people, like on a subway, or do we want to go find some other route that's more open? It's just we can't control everything, but we can make choices about the environments we put our place.
So mindfulness is, if I have to use one word as a synonym, it's awareness.
Yes, it's awareness and being mindful means being aware intentionally.
Okay, so we're done with mindful. Now let's talk about meditation. And I finally got it right because every time I have to say meditation, I always say mediation, but this time I didn't blow it.
I do that lots of times when I spell it. The autocorrect lots of times changes it.
Yeah. My worst was when I was told I had to make a joke at the start of a presentation. And I said, I'm no good at jokes. And, I believe in the power of negative thinking. If you're convinced you're going to blow it, you're going to blow it. And what I wanted to say was, as a recovering academic, and then whatever, I forget what. But instead, I said as a recovering alcoholic. And when I realized what I had said, I turned 20 shades of red. Immediately said, and I don't even drink. And that became the joke. But I am mindful of slips of the tongue. Meditation, what is that?
Meditation is just a word for different kinds of paying attention to. There's all different kinds of meditation. And mindfulness is one form of meditation. So mindfulness is meditation. It's just a specific kind that's not, there's times where you say mantras in order, certain words that you repeat over and over. There's times where you try to envision specific things being certain ways. Like you're saying, like positive thinking, um, trying to create spaces in your mind that you like to carry with you. Mindfulness, there's things of compassion, being compassionate for other people. There's compassion meditations. There's meditations for forgiveness. There's meditations for loss. There's all kinds of, they're just kinds of different, they're all, to do them, you start out by being mindful.
But what is meditation?
Meditation is the same thing, it's paying attention to yourself. And by using some form of exercise, some type of technique or programming that helps you to pay attention to what's going on with yourself and to be more at peace with who you are. So meditation it can be synonymous with mindfulness, or it can be different kinds of meditation.
I always thought of meditation as concentrating on positive things, the outcome you want to achieve, shutting out, I guess I should say, everything around you for whatever amount of time.
Some meditations, as I was saying, some meditations are like that. But at the same time, in order to do that, you really have to pay attention to what's going on with yourself. And it's impossible, actually. You can temporarily, and for brief periods of time, not be aware of your thinking or emotions and have some space from that by different kinds of meditation. But you can't stop yourself from thinking or feeling, or you can temporarily not be aware of sensations or feelings or thoughts. They're usually just for brief periods of time by different meditation, because your mind thinks, because that's what it's supposed to do. With mindful meditation, you don't try to stop anything. You don't try to stop the discomfort in your life. You don't try to switch your emotion from feeling sad or feeling anxious or afraid or happy, or you don't try to hold on to anything. You don't try to push anything away. You just try to be aware and to note and be aware and name what it is that's going on in the moment, whether it's a thought, an emotion, or a sensation.
So mindfulness meditation is really the same thing. I mean, you can talk about mindfulness, you can talk about meditation, and you don't need the adjective.
That's true, you don't. And there are some things that involve concentration and positive thinking. I would say those are more in line with what you were referring to as meditation.
How does this help a business owner, an employee, a manager, a supervisor?
It can help anybody at any time in any situation. And the reason it does is because it's ironic that the more we pay attention to ourselves, not in an egocentrical kind of way, but just noting and being honest with ourselves, with what we're experiencing in the moment, then the more space we get from that and don't think we are that. We don't think we're the emotion we're experiencing in the moment. We don't think we're the thought that we just had. We don't think we're the gut, feeling the tension in our gut when an employee says something that really rubs us the wrong way. We just recognize and note that that's what we're experiencing in the moment. And then that gives us space, just a moment of space to acknowledge that and to be aware of it by being mindful of it. And then we have a choice, like I was saying earlier, it can create that freedom and power to have choice. Then we have a choice of whether we want to say something, of whether maybe we could respond in a different way. If we want to not say anything and give ourselves some space and come back to it at another moment. We want to think about a different way to do it. So it gives us pause. When you're being mindful, it gives you pause. Lots of times we think we have to react or say something or do something right away. In conversations with people, in workplace, in education, in learning, in almost everything you can think of, in relationships with people, intimate relationships with people. Most of the time, we are thinking so much about what we want to say, what we have to get across, or what we want to make sure they understand us, that lots of the times we aren't really present in listening and hearing what is actually being said, and especially what our reaction to is it. So that most of the time, if you have employees or work with a staff of people, or you're a teacher and work with other teachers, or working with students on something, most of the time our reactions and what we say or do are habits. They're done automatically. You say something, my mind suddenly, I listen to that, I all of a sudden connect it with all these other things that have happened in my past when I've had similar things that were said. And many times that I'm not paying attention, I automatically say the same thing that I would say to somebody else who said the same thing. Even though it may not be the most helpful, or it may not even be exactly what it, in response to what you said, but because it's what I thought you said, because of all my past connections with it. But most of the time we aren't aware of our thoughts or emotions or sensations because we're responding so quickly. Unless it's an emergency and we need to make a momentary decision to get out of the way of something, or to turn the steering wheel, or to slow up or speed down or put on the brakes. Most things, 95% of the time, we don't need to respond as quickly as we always think we do. Mm-hmm. So being mindful and practicing meditation gives us time and space to be honest with ourselves, not only what the experience is in the moment, but what we're telling ourselves about the experience.
You are reminding me of an incident that occurred when I had shared office space. And there were a couple lawyers there. And there was a woman who had another business. I don't remember what it was. And as I'm speaking with one of the lawyers, she comes over and apologizes, interrupts, and says to the lawyer, I want to thank you for the advice you gave me. It was great. And he looked at her, smiled, and said, what advice? And she said, you told me not to respond to the email that I received. And that was the right thing to do. Not doing something is actually doing something, and most people don't realize that. But I've been listening to you, and you have a very calm tone of voice. Is that intentional for your profession, or is that just the way you are?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think in many ways it's just the tone of my voice, which
But the
is,
tone of your voice can be an important tool.
it can, and because it's the way it is, it's also been very helpful when I've been supporting people in traumatic situations or grief or loss or bereavement or somebody they know is murdered or whatever the situation is, or in the hospital when there's been an accident and I'm there with the family. Um,
But that can also work against you.
it can be really, really helpful at the moment. And it also reminds me to be present for the person and what they're experiencing and that I can't fix them.
But your tone of voice can work against you. If the person is angry and you come in and you're all calm, then you're not mirroring their emotions. And they may say, my husband was just shot. My child was just shot. We were just in a car accident, and you're nice and calm. You have to be empathetic, not only in your words, but also in your tone.
You have to be empathetic with your words, your tone, and your presence. And many times in that moment, in that situation, there you don't say much anyway. The most helpful thing you can do many times is just being present and being with somebody and answering any questions they have, especially at that moment.
Sure, I could remember being in a hospital waiting to go and see a friend, and there was a woman there. She was whimpering. I don't know what happened. I didn't ask. But all the priest was doing was just sitting there holding her hand. He didn't say two words to her.
Mhm.
And she thanked him profusely. And they left. And I looked at the nurse and I said, he didn't say a word. She goes, yeah, he's a smart man. A younger priest would have been talking, and that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and if somebody's really angry at the moment, there's been a number of situations where somebody's really angry, a couple times um, when they were really threatening and they were about to come at me and screaming and yelling at me. This is not in the hospital, this is the thing on the street. And also being really, your voice, meeting anger with anger doesn't help. But also saying stuff like, oh, you're really angry, I understand. That doesn't help either.
No, it doesn't. No.
Because I don't know what the experience is like for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many times you're right. Many times it's not necessarily being conscious. There's so many cliches and stupid things to say, and I have said them all at some point to people and done really ridiculous things that weren't helpful over the years. And I probably still will at times, but I think I've gotten much better at learning when to be present, and part of that is by being mindful, meditating every day, because you can't just all of a sudden turn it on. You can't all of a sudden, never, most of the time you're really nervous and anxious and going around and yelling at people, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation, okay, they're expecting you to be different, and somebody's really angry, and you can't all of a sudden be calm.
I was once working at a children's mental health center. I was, for all intents and purposes, the administrator. The mother of one of the children called up, and she told me that she reached the decision that when her husband, who was a police officer, came home with their son, she was going to kill them both and kill herself.
Mm.
And I spoke to her for 15 minutes on the phone, got her to agree not to do anything until I had the coordinator of the program give her a call. She was a therapist. I was going for my doctorate in international relations. I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran to where the therapy was being held, flew down the stairs, interrupted the psychologist who was working with the therapist, which was something she did not like doing. But when she saw the expression on my face, she realized something was up, so she didn't say anything. And trying to catch my breath, I said, the woman's name, called, going to kill the husband, the son, herself. She said she'd wait for your phone call. And I had the presence of mind to write down her phone number, just in case the boss didn't have it. I gave it to her. The psychologist told me to sit down, and they brought me some water, and they said, okay, what happened? What did you say to her? And I said, I don't know. I don't remember. And this was, I ran probably a 4-minute mile. So it was like 5 minutes. And to this day, I don't know what I said to her. What I do know is that when the boss came out, she said, she wants to know if you can be the family's therapist. And then everybody laughed. And by then I was calm, and I said, no, you tell her that I'm a serious academic. I'm involved with international relations, not with this psychological nonsense. And everybody laughed and said, okay, he's okay. He can leave now. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I said. But afterwards, the next day, I spoke with the boss, and she said, well, you've picked things up. By reading the reports on the children, you learn what to say and what not to say, because the parents are making the mistakes, and you know all the mistakes that the parents are making. So you can learn how to calm someone else down. And your voice is probably, from what I can gather in the 25 minutes that we've been speaking, it's probably your most powerful tool, in addition to your knowledge, of course.
It's also really helpful for sleep recordings if people want to go to sleep. I can just do a recording, and I'm sure if I talk very long, people will just go to sleep. So.
Well, when my last book came out, I sent out a tweet that said, my book has been recommended by the American Medical Association as a cure to insomnia. Do not read while operating heavy equipment. And then I just said, to be on the safe side, I put down hashtag fake news, just in case someone was so stupid that they believe it. And sure enough, somebody contacted me. And I couldn't believe it. But anyways, we're almost out of time. Gabriel, I have enjoyed this. My last question, as you know, and as I'm asking it, I will share your contact information so that if anyone wants to reach out to you, they'll know how to do it. Is there anything that I did not ask that you wish I had asked? And if I had asked, what would you have said?
One thing I can think of is that perhaps how can people begin to be more mindful or practice or learn to meditate in their life without having to go to some monastery or or some spiritual place, or and you have to. We talked about it a little bit actually, about that you don't have to. Some people think go off into the space and find some peaceful place or try to avoid things, although there are meditations like that. But the answer would be that people can start anytime, anywhere, right now, just by paying attention to your breath as it comes in and as it goes out, and intentionally following your breath as it comes in and goes out. And just being conscious of your breathing. You don't need to try to breathe faster. You don't have to try to slow it down. Just being aware of it. And as you're aware of your breath, then you'll start to notice that then you're aware of different senses. You'll hear a sound, and you can just say to yourself internally, there's a sound. You might feel a pain in your knee. There's a pain in my knee. You might feel some sadness, and just say to yourself, there's sadness. You might feel pleasure in thinking of something, and you go, there's pleasure. And the same with thoughts. Instead of, by starting to be more mindful, you just do that for a couple minutes a day. You start to do it for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. It starts to make a huge difference in your life and things that, in how you react and what you do at other times the rest of the day. Not always, because lots of times we forget to do it. But you don't have to wait. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to be in a certain room. You can do it while you're brushing your teeth. You can do it while you're eating. You can do it while you're talking to somebody, though that's one of the most difficult times to do it, unless you take a space and pause in between what you're saying. And there are lots of classes online nowadays, lots of classes from a lot of really good teachers in mindfulness. And I really
What do you think of YouTube videos on meditation?
Oh, they're great. Some are really good, and some of the really good teachers of mindful meditation have a lot of their programs on YouTube, as well as in podcasts and otherwise. And there are now lots of books, also including The Brave Year 52 Weeks Being Mindful, which is a really practical book. It literally has 52 classes you can do with yourself or with other people once a week, and then 2 to 3 different exercises that you do, different kinds of different meditations where you focus on different things, different kinds of mindful meditations that you can practice during that time. So you can go back just to any of the exercises and just practice one and see if it's helpful to you, for you. You can go to the class, each of the classes, whenever, in whatever order you want. So I think it's just people are finding that it's a really useful book, and it's available on Amazon in hardcover, softcover, Kindle, electronic, etc. So, and it's also by a number of other publishers in a lot of other countries as well as the U.S.
Well, Gabriel, thank you very much for coming on. You've provided a lot of food for thought, and I thank you.
I thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you and spend a little bit of time with you. You have a very wonderful sense about you as well. I could just see myself sitting in your living room and us talking about a lot of things for for quite some time. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.